Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Thanks very much for joining me. Welcome back to Peter Goes Rogue. I've gone quite rogue with this, haven't I? This is something you weren't foreseeing and you didn't expect. Bet none of you saw this coming. Anyway, you'll have seen my new little intro, which is going to be the standard intro going forward, where the door opens and the Porsche is revealed, which I thought was quite amusing. Anyway, today we're going to talk about... I'll just get my camera to track me. Today we're going to talk about ownership experience of cars like these. What's really involved in terms of cost and maintenance and all that kind of thing. And some of the ups and the downs of having a car like I do, where you don't actually do a lot of miles in it. Now, some of you will just be saying, well, why? Why don't you do miles in it? Well, that's the thing. To make this an affordable proposition, I'm not a millionaire, contrary to what you all think. I know people call me Lord Oxley and all the rest of it. But actually, it's not quite as simple as that. So, how can you make something like this something that could be affordable? Now, obviously, it's not a first car, so it is a luxury item. It's a high days, holidays, sunny Sundays car. In fact, it's very sunny out there, filming this on a Sunday. It's a very sunny day today, to be honest, but unfortunately we had the most torrential rain the last 24 hours and everywhere around here. Where I live, it looks as dry as a bone outside. The minute you get to the main road, everywhere's still flooded. So we can't go out in it today because that's not the way I do it. I am very OCD and a bit precious with this car, but there's a big upside to that. So if you don't do very many miles, and I mentioned in the first episode that I only did, I think in the last 12 months, 2024 to 2025, summer to summer, 854 miles. That's probably my lowest mileage ever. You don't want to go much lower than that, though. There's actually a balance to be struck here, whereby, I just realised I'm still wearing the gloves, but that is, When I did the intro video, I was going to show you something which I'll show you in a minute. I only shot that minutes ago, but you'll have seen it a day or two ago, obviously. But I've got the gloves on for a reason. I'll take them off once I've finished. So I'm doing very low miles, but the upside of that is that if you keep these cars in immaculate condition like I do, and you keep the mileage low, you can still enjoy going out in them. I have a tremendous time in this vehicle. It's just unbelievable. You know what I mean? It's a fantastic thing. It's got a real sort of presence. It's the right colour, I think, for a Porsche. Just looks beautiful. And it's got this fantastic presence on the road. It's also quite surprisingly a small car, because people don't realise, and me included, this is not a big vehicle, you know. One of the reasons that attracted me to the car, I saw it. I was looking around thinking about getting another sports car. Some of you will know my history where I talked about the GT86 and the S2000. But just look at this, the car as I'm showing you now. It's got these haunches, which always remind me, on this vehicle, quite a lot of the E-Type Jaguar. And it's like a 21st century E-Type Jaguar to me. And that is one of the things that really attracted me to the car, to be honest. It's something that has struck me as being one of its key attractions. Anyway, I'm going to sort of try to zoom you in slightly on myself if I can. Because today we're going to talk about, there we go, that's better. So we're going to talk about the costs and what's involved, and we've got here this wonderful book to have a little look at. Although, because I haven't got my usual camera, I won't be able to zoom you in like I do normally, so I'll just sort of give you a little bit of a gist. It's very, very nice. It shows all the basic details of how it's engineered, the design of the suspension, and I think there's a picture here of the engine and gearbox, which is a miracle of engineering, frankly, and packaging. I mean, just look at this. So look at the exhaust on the right as you're looking at it, and then the engine and gearbox on the left. And obviously that's to create that luggage compartment at the back. In a 911, that would all be one great big mass all together, and there wouldn't be that gap. And they're the other way around. They tend to have the gearbox facing forward, most of them, I think I'm right in saying. So it's a similar engine to the 911. I don't like the 911 personally, and if I won the lottery, I tell you now, I wouldn't buy a 911. I don't dislike them, but for me, it's still got the engine in the wrong place. A mid-engine car like this is unbelievable. I don't know whether you noticed when I was showing you the... Does it show the brakes here? There should be an article about the brakes. But here we go, the brakes. I mean, it's a little bit hard to show it in this format, but basically you've got the brake calipers. Even the brake calipers are put in a way that focuses the weight of the car as far to the centre as possible. So you've got those calipers. So the front, if this is the front of the car and this is the back, they've put them toward the centre, so that the front one is as far back as possible and the rear one is as far forward as possible. So all the mass and the weight of the car is at the middle, as indeed is the passenger compartment. And driver, obviously. So everything about it is engineered for handling, really, for performance, you know. Just going back on the zoom a bit. So it's a very clever design, and the Boxster is the same. I feel just the same about the Boxster as I do about this one. Trying to get my auto track back in. I've got slight. There we go. So let's talk about ownership and costs and things. So first of all, this car, I purchased this December 2017. I saw it, I'd already seen a Boxster that was identical, colour and wheels and everything. Titanium wheels, I think they call it. I've also got a certificate here somewhere. I'll read out to you what the spec is. It's a certificate of production. I won't read it all out, but I'll read out the interesting bits. So it's got, this is the optional equipment. This is what you've got to watch out for if you buy a new one especially. Optional equipment includes silver GTS metallic paint, GTS interior package, that's the stitching and the Alcantara in GTS silver, Porsche Doppelkupplung gearbox, PDK gearbox, heated seating, cruise control, sound package plus speakers, two-zone automatic climate control, smoking package. It's not actually because he was a smoker, it's just to get the additional power point, and you can tell it's never been smoked in at all. Mobile phone preparation, park assist rear, voice control activation system, so you can get to do stuff like your phone and things. I don't think I've ever used that. Electrically folding door mirrors, Porsche communication management system, that's the sat nav, etc, etc, and audio system control. Including navigation module, wheels painted in satin platinum completely. So that's inside and out the wheel. And that's it. Now that's a relatively modest list. Some people go absolutely crazy. But actually, I think he chose well. The only thing I would have done differently at all, I think, is the silver GTS stitching, because the problem is, because it's quite light, when the sun's on the dashboard, you can get a slight reflection of it. If you'd gone for red, but then the red wouldn't really look right with the rest of the car, so you can't win, can you? Anyway, I've actually met two other gentlemen who, this was made in the last week of production of the GTS, the 981 production. This was one of the last cars off the production line in spring of 2016. It was end of March 2016 it was. And that week, there was my car, there was a chap I met at Alton Park, and we realised from the chassis numbers that his was one car ahead of me, and another gentleman, a red one, that was two cars behind me. So they were all on the production. So it's like a reunion of these cars. It's really weird. Yeah, and there we go. So black leather seats, black leather with rhodium silver Alcantara GTS spec. Very nice, very nice. First registered in April 2016, so it's almost 10 years old. Wow. Okay, so that's probably all you need to really understand from that package. But let's get into the costs and the servicing, because I think that's the thing that people will be eager to hear about and understand how much it's cost. So, just a recap then. So I bought it in a very unusual way, in that to make it affordable, I didn't want to go on finance, and I had enough funds to buy it, and I mean just. In fact, my wife actually helped me with a little bit of the deposit, just a little tiny bit of it, because I just couldn't quite get the deposit down. And then I was waiting for a sort of a bonus payment from work at the time, and then it all came together. All the planets aligned, you know. So I bought it for cash, effectively. Now this caused a lot of problems. Not really a problem as far as I'm concerned, but the dealer absolutely hated this. I won't name them, but they were very upset, you could see, because this is not in their business model. And they were trying to get me. There was actually a quote. I'll quote it to you. Well, no, it won't, because it'll give a bit too much away, perhaps, that confidential stuff. But effectively, they wanted to put it on a finance package, and I didn't want this at all. Now, with some manufacturers, and this happened with when we bought our Skoda Yeti and the GT86 from Toyota, they will give you effectively a discount. You will actually save money by putting it on a finance package and then paying it off after 3 months, which is the minimum period you can have it running for. So they then, you see, the reason is they all get bonuses at these dealers for selling finance. I'm not very tolerant of this. I believe if you can't afford something, don't buy it. Excuse me. But it's the way of the world now, so maybe I'm just being a bit old-fashioned. Anyway, we took advantage with the GT86 and I paid it off after 3 months. And we took advantage with the Skoda and we paid it off after 3 months. And we ended up gaining something like £700 by doing that. And I thought they were going to do this with the Porsche. And if you'd have said that, because I was thinking, well, I'll just do the same. I'll pay it off after 3 months and settle after 3 months, the full sum, you know. And they didn't offer it. And I said, well, are you offering 0% finance? No. No, it's actually going to work out over the cost of the car. It would work out. It would cost me £11,000 in interest. And I said, why would I do that? Oh, but think of what you could do with the money. Think of all that money. Think of what you could do with it. I said, yeah, give it to you in interest payments. You must think I'm stupid. I had absolutely none of this. I said, unless you are going to offer me something, an incentive, like Skoda and Toyota, oh, Porsche don't do that, so, you know, you've got to want it sort of thing. Oh, I'll just pay you cash then. I'll just do a straight bank transfer. Oh, no. And you could see they'd completely overplayed the hand. They were really panicking about it. And it became a little bit annoying, to be perfectly honest with you. So when my wife came along to actually seal the deal and sign, I tried to get a discount out of them for cash, and they weren't interested in that either because they weren't going to get a benefit. I did do a deal, so I got a tracker fitted to the car, and I also got it delivered. So I think I got £1,000 discount. I got a tracker, and they delivered it on the back of a transporter, one of these, like a race shuttle. So it's completely enclosed. The car is completely protected from the elements, and it had to be driven 3-hour journey, you know. So that was good for me. I didn't want to put miles on the car unnecessarily. It was in the winter, so I didn't want it to be on the road anyway. In December, not a good idea. So I managed to tick all the boxes of what I wanted, and I paid them cash. But they sat there trying to sell us anything they could think of. You need gap insurance, sir. Oh, imagine if you crash it, you won't be able to afford to get another one with the insurance payout. Oh, that'll be really bad. Suits you, sir. You know, it's like, no, don't think so. This car is going to be the most pampered Porsche in history, or certainly one of them. I don't think I'll need that. Oh no, I really strongly must urge you. I said, look, no. The answer's no. What's the next question? Alloy wheel insurance. Oh, yes, that old chestnut alloy wheel insurance, of course. I forgot that. And they wanted, I don't know what it was, £1,000 for alloy wheel insurance. I said, no. I said, it's not going to go anywhere near a curb, this car. I said, this is going to be driven high days and holidays, and I'm going to be driving it like a nun relative to curbs anyway. Oh, no. You need paintwork protection. You need to have a coating, silicate coating, diamond coating, blah, blah, blah. And off they go, you know. And I said, no, I don't want that either. I said, because, but you don't want to get this stone chips. And this coating that you rub on will really protect your car. And I said, no, it won't. I know all about detailing, thank you very much, because I've done a bit of detailing myself. I said, I know all about this. It won't give any protection whatsoever to the car. I said, it will protect it from washing, and it will make it nicer to wash. I said, but I don't need that anyway. It's going to be detailed and then have PPF coverage all over the vehicle. They were like, oh. And in the end, I was about to sign, and next minute, the dealer principal comes down from his lofty high office at the top of the showroom, and he starts doing it again. I started to get annoyed now, and I said, look, no disrespect. I said, I want this car, but others are available. I said, and if you're going to make this difficult, I said, I don't see any reason why you are. I said, I should be the perfect customer for you. I've got the finance in place. I just want to sign on the dotted line, and I want to get my car and go. Thank you very much. Once I've paid you. I said, and you can have it delivered on Friday. You know, oh, well. And I said, look, just don't go there. I said, I've had it all already. I said, if you carry on with this, I'm going to get annoyed, I'm going to walk out and the deal will be off. No sale. And I had to say that to the dealer principal at Porsche's face before he backed down. And my wife was getting really annoyed with him. She was like, sat there shaking her head, furious. It was becoming rude, you know. It was like really pushy. And I was totally immune to BS, you know. I was having absolutely none of this. And I'm quite proud of it, as you can probably tell. But it's true. It's true. Anyway, moving on. So it was delivered and I was very happy. And then it went off for its PPF. £4,500 worth of PPF. That took a week to fit it. It's not a quick job. Massive skills are required. They have to detail the car perfectly first. Then they polish it and then they put the PPF on. So underneath that film, it's immaculate, which is why the car looks like it does. Spin you around so you know what we're talking about, so you haven't forgotten. So that's the reason the car looks so absolutely epic, you know. I mean, it is a beautiful thing. I think it's one of the nicest looking sports cars that there is, and as I say, we're going to be, don't worry, we are going to be going out in this car, not necessarily in this video, but we are going to be having a proper look at it. And if I can just get my camera to work, there we go. We're going to be going out, you're going to be seeing it out in the open. But it's striking, I mentioned this when I went to the service centre for MOT. Cars are getting so huge now and so heavy. I hate the way the motor industry is going. They're doing everything wrong. Huge cars, heavy cars, you know, cars that are destroying the roads, and we wonder why we've got potholes everywhere. What we need is lighter cars. And we don't want electric vehicles either. We've just had a story, of course, recently about this Tesla accident in Germany, where a father and his 2 kids were burned to death. Absolutely awful. And they couldn't get out of the car because the electrics had shut down. It wouldn't let the fire crews open the doors. The door handles wouldn't pop out. Unbelievable. Horrible. They couldn't get access to get them out, and there was bystanders in tears, you know, absolutely dreadful. Anyway, I'm not a fan of, it's not just Tesla, it's any electric vehicle. I think the world has gone crazy. I think we're going in the wrong direction. Hybrids, yes, I think that's a lot of logic for hybrids. All electric EV, no, crazy. Anyway, we'll move on. We'll talk about that another day. That's something I'm going to cover on this channel. I'm going to have a talk about that and a few home truths for the evangelists to punish them. Sorry, back to the subject of Porsches. So, I've now got my Porsche. And it was the winter, so I didn't take it out at all, really, to drive it. It just wasn't suitable. So what I do with this, as I mentioned earlier about the low miles it's got only 854 miles per year-ish. The last couple of years, we've done next to nothing. But it's important that you do need to run it from time to time. And what you mustn't do is start it and stop it, which is why I'm very annoyed about a couple of things on the car that annoy me. There's only a couple, because it's a beautiful thing. It's wonderful. But it's got this automatic stop-start, which a lot of them have now. Well, that is not good for an engine like that. I don't care what they say. You don't want that firing up and then stopping again after about 30 seconds or a minute, which is what happens if you leave it idling. And you don't, it's also got this stupid electric handbrake, which is another stupid, electrifying everything for no reason. It'd be lighter if it just had a little lever, simple fly-off handbrake's all it needs. I never use it because it's PDK gearbox on this, and of course you can just leave it in drive. So to be honest, we do that with all our automatics. We don't need to use the handbrake, so it's quite superfluous, to be honest. But anyway, so it's then, I say, you've got to use it occasionally. So I usually take it out for at least an hour, and that to get the engine and gearbox and the oil circulating. I'm very mechanically sympathetic, so I drive off. And by the way, wearing my black gloves, this will become clear in a minute. I drive off and I wear driving gloves because of the Alcantara steering wheel. You don't want to get that all, you know, sticky if you've been drinking Coca-Cola, or your hands are not as clean as you think they are. Maybe you've touched the car. You're going to ruin it. So I have driving gloves, a bit like Han Solo from Star Wars. Open-backed, traditional gentleman's driving gloves. Quite funny, really. You'll see those in the fullness of time when I show you some in-car footage. Anyway, but what I do, I'm very sympathetic. I'll usually let the car idle for about 4 or 5 minutes. Then I'll drive it very, very gently. And on this car, you've got fantastic instrumentation in terms of all the details of your fluids, temperatures, pressures, all that stuff. So I watch not concerned about the water pressure or temperature, it's more the oil temperature. And the oil temperature, you don't want to start pushing it until it gets to about 75 degrees plus. And that takes a while. It takes 10 or 15 minutes. So you have to warm up the oil. A bit like a race car. You don't want to be jumping in this and blasting off down the road and doing a qualifying lap. You'll ruin your engine. Now, this engine doesn't suffer from the bore scoring problems you may know about that some of the Porsches, some of the early models did, and the 911s certainly have. This one's got quite a good record on reliability. It says touching the wood heavily. But it's got, there's been a relative lack of problems on these. And obviously fully Porsche serviced helps. The problem that you have as an owner, though, and the problem I'm coming up to, I'll come to all the breakdown in a minute, but the issue that you have, I'm now coming up to 10 years. Now, when it gets to 10 years, you can no longer extend the warranty. And I've actually let the warranty slide for the last year anyway. But I was having extended warranty right up to 8 years. And that's a problem because two things here. What a lot of people do is say, well, if I can't get the extended warranty, I don't need to pay Porsche's prices. And the extended warranty is £1,100 for 2 years. It's quite a lot of money. And with the miles I'm doing and the type of driving I'm doing, kind of don't really need it. Now, you can never be sure. But it's not really the sort of ownership that justifies extended warranty. Doing a lot of hard, heavy miles would justify it. But this is so pampered, this car. It's like treated like an F1 car, thoroughbred. And you can see it sits on these carpet mats, and so that even the tyres don't get stressed sitting here over long periods. And I rotate it every few weeks, even in the winter time. It gets moved about and the engine gets run. Even if I don't go out in it, just to warm the oil and circulate it a bit so things don't become sludgy. Anyway, so this is the dilemma you face. Now, what a lot of people do, I've got a card up here actually from a couple of different, shall we say, non-authorised garages, Porsche specialists. The thing is with Porsche specialists, they're often people that have worked at Porsche, so they know their stuff. They only use the genuine Porsche parts. So it's probably, if you're considering one of these cars, a 10-year-old plus one is probably, look at mine, mine's almost 10 years old. Who wouldn't want that, especially when you see what it can do. It's quite attractive, but the problem you've got is, or the problem I've got, what do I do now? Because if I move away from, strictly speaking, if I can't extend the warranty, I don't need the Porsche dealer network anymore, really. And I'll tell you why, what the costs were. So let me give you the cost, and I'll come back to this thing about warranty in a second, because it'll make more sense. So I have here, this was the Porsche Boxster and Cayman 981 type fixed price servicing menu. And it's minor service and major service, so I'll just read it quickly. And it says, minor service includes fault code analysis, replacement of the pollen filter, provision of 1 litre of Mobil 1 top-up pack. Well, I've got so many of these now, I just don't need any more. But anyway, I've almost got enough for a full service. Inspection of the vehicle underside and the engine compartment, the coolant hoses, coolant level and antifreeze check, radiator, air intake. Well, we'll come to this when I show you more outside, but the one thing, the radiator check, there's a bit of a glitch in the design on this car. One thing they got wrong, and that was, well, apart from the auto stop start and the electric handbrake, the other thing was they've got no grills across the front on the radiator to protect it. And you've got this intercooler, you've got the air conditioning condenser intake, and then you've got the main radiator, all just really exposed with this big wide mouth it's got. And a lot of people had problems where they had punctured radiators. Now, I had a conversation with the dealer about this because I wasn't happy, and I said, why is it that the brand new model has now got a grille on it, protective grille, and this hasn't? Can we not? And he said, no, it doesn't fit. The slight difference in the design between the two models at the front. Just on that front bumper, annoyingly. So, I said, well, I'll have to go and get the Zunsport ones now. That's an aftermarket one, and they are really good. They're not perfect, but they do the job well. And I'll talk about them a bit more later. Anyway, so that's a bit of a point, because you have to, I think it's 360 quid or something I'd spend to get some replacement aftermarket grills, because Porsche forgot to do it, which is a strange thing to do. And if you get a hole in your intercooler rad or your main radiator, it's going to cost an absolute fortune to replace it. But anyway, Moving on, and it goes on to say inspection of the wiper system, drive shafts, tyres, locks and latches, electrical equipment, your horn, windscreen wipers, fluid check and lighting system check. Final test drive, blah, blah. So that's a minor service. So this is what they were charging, which I thought was reasonable. Boxster or Cayman, 495 quid. I don't think that's too bad for a car of this type. Then you've got a major service. Major service also includes replacement of the air filter, check the condition and adjust if required, the fuel system, the parking brake, the clutch, the steering gear, the tyre rod ends, axle joints, running gear, exhaust system, suspension, seat belts, throttle actuation, and poly rib belt. Oh, that's the drive belt. More on this in a moment. We're coming to that. That's why I've got the glove on. And then finally, a 111-point check. If you wish to... This is wrong. I don't agree with this. Now it gets a bit of a rip-off. The 111-point check requires you to take out... that is required to take out a Porsche-approved warranty in the fixed price servicing menu. It's £217 extra for all Porsche models. So you've got to pay them to do a check, so to take out a warranty. I think that's ridiculous. And I've had this 111-point check occasionally thrown in for free, so it's a bit of a rip-off, that. Anyway, here's the major... So minor service at £495. This is what they were charging. This is in 2017, 2018. Major service was £630. Now that doesn't include things like the drive belt, that's extra. Brake fluid change, an additional £95. And obviously MOT and things are extra. Now suddenly, when COVID started, this all got pulled and the prices shot up. And it went from £495 for the minor service to £550. And the major service, well, the major service appears to be around about £1,100, although that's all in. So maybe quoting these numbers like they're doing is a bit false, really. I reckon it's more like £600 for a minor service, usually, around £550, £600. And the major service is about £1,100. But before you have a heart attack hearing this, you need to have this in context. It only has a service every other year. It's not annual, it's biannually. And I reckon, I think I worked it out, that I've spent something like, over the 8 years I've had the car, I think I worked out that I'd spent about 6,000 in servicing, all in, 6,000 in servicing. So over 8 years, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. Now, I mean, I'll give you a quote here. There's a couple here where, yes, there's a couple of stinkers where they've added, obviously, there's the £275 for the road recovery service, and then there's this £217 for the check, although they charged me £175, so there's inconsistency here. And then, of course, there's the warranty with £1,100. So one of those services was basically £2,950. But that's not every year. That's one bad big service. So I've paid the £1,100 twice. That's £2,200. And then there's been... So it's right, isn't it? It's about £3,600, £3,800 over 8 years, something like that. I don't think that's too bad for a car like this. Now, here's where you have problems if you're a very low mileage user like me. So you have a lot of things that are on the schedule that says, example, spark plugs. It says spark plugs need to be done, I think it's every, top of my head, I think it's every 40,000 miles or 4 years. So I'm not going to hit 40,000 miles for a long time, you know. So I get to 4 years and I say, is this strictly necessary? Oh, yes. And it was the same with the drive belt. Now, I actually have it here. Look at this. This is the actual drive belt, the original drive belt the car came from the factory with, which I'm going to show you in a second. And they said, oh, well, it's 4 years now. 2020 this was. You need to have the drive belt done. Was it 6? No, I'm wrong. It's 6 years, the drive belt, 6 years, or 60,000 miles. So this comes up in 2022, 23, and I said, oh, no. Are you kidding me? And the thing is, because of the way I keep this car, it doesn't sit on the drive even. So it's kept in here or it's out driving. So it doesn't get any great variances of temperature. Never gets very cold, never gets very hot. It doesn't get any sun because it's not sitting out on the drive. It doesn't get sun reflected off a hot pavement or a hot driveway. So things like rubber belts don't degrade like they would even if you were doing the same low miles as me and you left it outside all the time. So it came up for the belt change being necessary. And I said, I'm sorry, it's just too much money. I'm not doing it this year. It's 40 to 60,000 miles. And he said, well, and the guy who was the service manager said, well, I can understand why you say that, but he said, I don't think you're wrong to not want to change it. He said, but don't leave it, do not forget this, and do not leave it too long. So all I did is I left it a year, which is basically another 800. So I only left it 800 miles. So in real terms, it was almost like I left it for a couple of weeks and then had it done. Do you know what I mean? In real terms with this car, because this car doesn't get weathered, it doesn't get heat, it doesn't get cold, etc. Let me show you, because I said to him, I said, look, so I left it a year. So it was a year late, technically speaking. And I said, I'll have it done, just for peace of mind. But I want to inspect the belt. Don't fail me again, Admiral. Well, you know, like Darth Vader would say. He said, yes, I'll get the guy to hand it to you. So they brought it me in this lovely Porsche bag. This is why I've got my gloves on, although this is the funny part of the story. There's a lot of dandelion clocks. I probably don't need the gloves on this, because I didn't have any gloves when he handed it to me, and I took it in my hand. So this is the main, you can see the grooves in it, the grooved drive belt. He's cut it. He's cut it to remove it, and he also basically to mark it so we knew which was which. Because he said it was confusing. Because when he inspected it, and then he got the new belt out, they look the same. And he said, even he admitted, it's got a bit dusty and dirty in here. That's why I probably do need the gloves. But when he took it off and gave it me, it was clean. And I went like this, and I went, there's no dirt on my hands. There is now, 'cause it's been sitting in here over the summer with the bag open, you know. Well, can you see that? So this is the drive belt, the original drive belt. And it looks like new. And this is a bit of a problem. So that cost me well, it was supposed to be £420, and he gave me a £100 discount. He said, I feel a bit embarrassed. I think it's good that you've changed it, but I'm going to give it you for cost. And he let me have it for 320 fitted. You can appreciate the difficulty, can't you? So someone like me, there are certain elements, certain things that you must change. And this is true of the earlier generations and the 911 in the Porsche range. And one of those is spark plugs, because they are deep in the engine, it gets very hot, and they are very prone to corrosion because they're low down. Again, mine probably isn't as prone to it, but you can't afford to take a chance, because if you getting the spark plugs out, because they're low down, and it's a boxer engine, so you've got your cylinders flat at the bottom of the car, and they are very prone to getting seized apparently if they are not changed at the. And everybody I've spoken to agrees, including the non-genuine, you know, the specialists that are non-genuine, non-official Porsche, not genuine, but non-official Porsche dealers who use genuine Porsche spark plugs. And even they've said, whatever you do, do not skimp on the spark plugs. It's the number one thing that can be catastrophic. If we can't get the plugs out, it's bad. And if they seize in, you've got a major engine rebuild potentially, and you're going to have them drilled out. It's a major job. It's going to cost thousands to put it right. And he said, just isn't worth it for the cost of 150 quid of having your spark plugs changed or whatever it is, thereabouts. So it's not worth it. Not worth it. And I've not spoken to a single person who's told me anything different, so I know this is true. This, however, this is why people with older cars, people like me, but with older cars still, this is why, you know, it's always difficult. This is the big dilemma you face as an owner of a sports car or something that's very desirable, or a classic car. How much maintenance is enough and how much is too much? This was too much maintenance. You can see from this, there's nothing. It looks like a brand new belt, drive belt. You know, and it's been driven very sensibly. There's no sign of any perishing or not even dirty. It's not even dirty. And I say, I've only had to put the gloves on. I'm going to take them off. I only had to put the gloves on today because it has got grubby in here. It had nothing to do with when it came out of the car. It was like mint. Just take that off. The old sweaty gloves off. So you see what I mean? It's a little bit of a challenge and a bit of a dilemma. How do we tackle these things? Tracking back. There we go, tracking. So it's a real dilemma knowing what to do for the best. I'm not an advocate of under-maintaining cars though, and you've got to remember when you want to sell the car, I can now say everything's been done, we're right up to date with everything. And I'm keeping that belt so that if anybody queries the time the belt was changed, which is a year later but only 1,000 miles later, it was changed at 14,000 miles and just didn't need it at all. You know, it's money up in smoke, isn't it? But there are, as I say, there are certain things you must not skimp on. So it's interesting. It's interesting. So in terms of the running through the way that it costs you money, what you've got to the way you've got to think about with these cars is don't think of it about and say how much. No, effing way, I'm not spending that. You've got to think of it. How long do you want to own it for, and then amortise the cost. Especially with these, you need to amortise the cost over the period in which you own the car. Yeah. So, for example, what did I say? About 4,000 or thereabouts. Call it 4,000. So I spent about £4,000, but in 8 years. So it literally averages, doesn't it, at about £500 a year, and it does. I reckon that's true. I reckon I've spent 500 quid a year on servicing. Now, on other things, costs. Let's talk about other things. Oh, one more thing I should mention. The other downside with these cars, not just this one, but the 911s and the Boxsters, are all the same. They are, the one big downside for me, because I don't like to leave it out there and I like to bring it in, is they are very, very smelly. And it's the catalyst and the headers, exhaust manifold, if you will. They absolutely stink, you know, and when you've been on a sort of a hot run, it absolutely reeks. It really is quite foul, to be honest. And consequently, it lasts for hours. It literally takes 4 hours to cool down this car, and I monitor it. I've got just out of camera shot. I've got you may have seen it when I walk around. I've got one of these like a gun thermometer, laser thermometer, and I monitor the temperatures. You can see when it comes in, the exhaust is about 100 degrees plus, you know. And things like the catalyst headers, you can fire through the wheel and you can see how hot they are. So yeah, you've got to be mindful. I tend to park it the other way around when it's been out for a run, because that way I can get the smell and the heat out. And what I do, I've got some of these mini chargeable handheld fans, and I point them at all the pertinent parts of the car that stink and create a little bit of Venturi. I've got a bigger fan that I use as well to blow it out and to try and accelerate the cooling, because the problem is I've got a house where our garage, although I prefer the design, the garage is part of the house and it stinks the house out if you're not careful. So you have to create some air to try and get that smell, get rid of it. So it's a bit like a Formula One garage. You come in here and you'll find the fans are on it, blowing it out, trying to cool it down. You know. Anyway, just forgot to mention that. So, I've done that. Yes, here we go. So, costs, I've talked about. Warranty, going back to the warranty. So, here's my issue now. I'm at 10 years old, coming up to 10 years old next year. I can't continue with the warranty anymore because it's not an option anymore. It's not offered. So, a lot of owners will say, and even, you know, a mechanic would tell you, an experienced mechanic for Porsche would say, there's no benefit to being in the dealer network anymore. You might as well go to an independent. But here's the thing, with me, it's more of a challenge because I've got such a low mileage car. I mean, this is now one of the lowest mileage cars in the country of its type. I have seen one, I think that's just a fraction less, I think a few hundred less, but it's pretty low for a Cayman. You see some Boxsters quite low because obviously people only take them out when the weather's good. People with my mindset and a convertible, you know. But if it's very low miles and you've had it maintained, you've got all those Porsche stamps in your book for its history, it swings and roundabouts. Here's the dilemma, because if you go outside the dealer network and you go to, I mean, I've got several options. I've got Nine Meister at Warrington, they've got a good reputation, as has Visac UK at Middlewich, a little bit closer. But you lose that dealer stamp, and when a buyer comes along in the future, if you sell it, having that complete history, it is a guarantee of the standards that the car has been maintained to. a lot of people don't know me. They don't know how completely OCD I am. They will be everybody's suspicious of everybody else, aren't they, sadly, when they're buying cars, which is understandable because there are unfortunately a lot of unscrupulous people out there who do not maintain their cars like I do, and want to kid you into thinking you're getting something that is not the case. But in the actual reality of the engineering and the work of the mechanics at these independents, there's no difference at all, I don't believe. And I've been and actually met them. Excuse me. I went to Nine Meister and they gave me a complete show round. It was really nice of them, actually. I was quite impressed. And it's a place that's not terribly impressive on the outside, but it is on the inside. It was a bit like a TARDIS type of thing. You go outside, you think, oh, it looks a bit, not sure if I want to park my car around here, And then you go inside, and it's like McLaren inside. It was amazing. And they were rebuilding a GT4 engine and gearbox. Really interesting stuff. And they clearly know what they're doing. So I don't think there's any disadvantage to going to an independent, except this thing about provenance, except the value. Because you're going to, and even the guy there, he said, well, if you've got very low miles, like you say, he said, for you, it swings and roundabouts. He said, keep going to Porsche, not necessarily Chester, because I've got a few issues with them. But if you keep going to Porsche, he said, you are going to suffer in the short term. But when you sell the car, you can charge full price, low miles, OCD, loony owner, and absolutely maintain to death, exactly as the factory would want it to be. That's your price. And I've been in the situation where I said, that's my price. I'm not interested in, no, I'm not going to haggle. That's the price. Do you want the car or don't you? There's all the provenance, there's all the bills, everything is here. This car is perfect and has been looked after as it was designed to be by the manufacturer, if not more so. But if you've got, other people will say, yeah, but you've gone outside the Porsche network, and they'll expect a discount for that because you've had a discount. This is the problem. You lose at one end of the deal or the other. So you either lose by coughing up Porsche's prices, eye-watering, but they're still not that bad. They're not. If you go and buy a Ferrari, God forbid, I mean, don't. I love Ferraris. Don't get me wrong. There's a few models I would love, like the 458 Speciale. I'd love one of those. They sound incredible. And there's McLarens as well. I mean, they're another one that seems to be not a very good proposition for maintenance and affordability. No. Porsche they're more of a dependable brand. They're very, very good for being able to budget and to predict. It depends on the vehicle, obviously, but they are a more consistent sort of manufacturer in terms of the costings, and you can actually work out a budget that would suit you, depending on what sort of car you want, obviously. This is the reason I went with them in the end. I thought this is going to be a car that won't depreciate much, if at all. And at the moment it's coming back up, by the way, so that's looking quite promising. It's a good time to buy one right now, a 981, I'll tell you that now. The best buys are the 981 GTS, like I've got. Boxster or Cayman is a sweet spot on values, trust me. The GT4 981 was a sweet spot, and they went ridiculously escalated prices, but now they've all come back down. And I think because the new generation version is considered to be a little bit more supple, still doesn't sound as good though, still has the same problem with these particulate filters. But they are probably, this one has got more of an edge over its next generation than the GT4 has. So this is actually the sweet spot, this GTS, or the Spider. Spider's nice as well. And if you can find one of these, but you don't have to have one as new as mine. I mean, it's not new now, obviously, it's 9 years old, 10 years old. I mean, I've got a friend who's looking at them in the 987 generation. They're a nice car. That's when I first fell in love with Porsche. I went on holiday to Jersey, and we drove around, and I've got a photograph of it. I've got my pad. Where is it? Here it is. I'll show you a photo of a car that we drove around in Jersey, if you just bear with me. And it's an absolute corker. And you pick these up now for about 10 grand or less. Really nice cars. Now, you've got to be careful what you're doing, yeah? You don't want to go charging into buying stuff like this unless you really have done your research. It's not something to buy on the spur of a moment. You don't want to be precipitous about it. But let me just put in, when we went on holiday, Jersey trip. Here we go. And there were, oh, here we go. So here we are. So this was the car that made me fall in love with Porsche. Whoops. So it's a 987 Boxster in black. Really nice. I think it's a Boxster S. That was the interior. Manual gearbox, which I was more into then. But I have to say that's because that was before the PDK came along and they got the Tiptronic systems, which wasn't as nice. But they're a beautiful little thing, and again, great fun. You know, you get your missus to drive it; she'll really enjoy it as well. And my missus really did enjoy our car, you know. And you can end up having tremendous fun with them. Let me show you just how much fun you can have. If I just bear with me one tick. I'm going to demonstrate the roof on the Boxster for you. Ready? Here it goes. Bit of wind in the background. Oh, that's my cat walking in front. Sorry, the cat has just walked in front of our security camera. Ignore that. So that's that one. And then I will now close the roof and demonstrate closure. Ready? There it goes. So there you go. And the cat's walked in front of the cat keeps walking in front of our camera. Anyway, you get the idea. Sorry about that. But that's a really, really beautiful car, which you can now pick up something like that. It'd be about 10 grand, thereabouts. Just a brilliant thing, really. In fact, I'm just flicking through. There's another couple of photos. There's one in particular which I think you should see. So, yeah, there's Mrs. O having her first Porsche experience. And then I'm just trying to find the other picture which I've lost. There was a really good one. My cat is being very naughty. She keeps walking in front of the security camera, triggering everything off. But there you go. That's me clearly enjoying myself, as you can see. But there was one more photo which I'm trying to spot, where it made me look like Steve McQueen, which made me chuckle. Which I shall now select. I found it. Here we go. This is me being very, very cool about it. See that? So this is a £10,000 car now. So you mustn't think that Porsches are unaffordable, which a lot of people do. You say, and you start thinking about these eye-watering numbers. But as I say, £500 a year for servicing your car. The only other costs, of course, are things like. Sorry, let's just get this camera back on track. There we go. Finally, the other costs you need to know about. I mean, insurance for me, well, I'm of a certain age now. So I pay about £420 a year. And for a car that can do what this can do, I think that's quite reasonable. And the other thing, of course, is the car tax. It was £365, but of course the government and the price of putting it up. So I think it's going to be about £425 this year, off the top of my head. The CO2 number is the one you need, isn't it, for calculating that, which I don't quite have it to. Oh, it's here. Let me just quote you because I've got all the data here somewhere. So the CO2 is to 190. This is the thing, it's 190. Yeah, grams per kilometre, 190 grams. That's low. For the power that this thing has got and the acceleration it's got, that is low. I had a friend who had a Nissan 350Z, and he was paying double what I was paying in tax. It's absolutely terrifying. It's a very efficient engine and a lot of power for what it can do, for what it costs, I should say. So there you go. I've given you really a summary. Let's just flip back to the car before I say cheerio, and you get bored of hearing from me now. We're talking all about this. Let's have a little look in the car, get a flavour for what it's like. See all our controls. Yes, just zoom in actually, you can see it's got the sports exhaust button, Sport Plus. Yeah. It's got these lovely seats. So I'm having a little bit of trouble with my gimbal at the moment. It's a really nice package. Oh, and by the way, I should have mentioned, we've got this black view front and rear camera system, which is, so you've got one there, and you may have noticed that we also have one, whoops, the other one is just here on the back window. So that keeps us sort of protected. One just reminded me of a beef. I'm glad I've mentioned that now. One thing that really irritated me actually when I had the car serviced was a bit. There we go. Was that the dealer, the Porsche dealer, Chester again, had actually undone the camera, and they do this sometimes. They just undo the camera because they don't want you to see them working on your car or saying things about you, swearing. But the trouble is, they'd done it quite roughly, and they'd actually affected the pad stuck on the windscreen, which was a new one. It was all brand new. They'd fitted it. I've had to get a new pad because they were so rough, and they didn't reconnect the camera, which I think is absolutely criminal. They should either reconnect the camera or they should tell you that it's not reconnected. Not just let you drive off up the road thinking I'm covered, I'm being, I've got the dash cam, the dash cam's working, when it isn't. It's not even connected. That is really bad, actually. I was very annoyed about that, and I put it in the feedback saying either reconnect it, A, be more careful so you don't damage the actual pad. I had to buy a new fixation pad for the windscreen. A, be careful. B, don't unconnect it, or if you do, put it back. And C, if you don't put it back, at least tell the customer. Really stupid. Anyway, there we go. So, yeah, we've got my nice book here. The Cayman. There we go. How's that? Got something else. This has nothing to do with the Porsche, actually. We've got another one of these Chinese 4K cameras that she got from my wife's car, and I'm a bit nervous about it because I've got this thing that might be spying on me. These Chinese electronics have got me a little bit nervous. But anyway, that's where we're at with the Cayman for now. So the next program I think will be the more meaningful one. The third show we're gonna take it outside. We've got to get the right weather though, so you might have to be a bit patient with me. I'm going to take it outside. You're going to join me in car. There is just one other negative I forgot to mention, but negatives on this car are all tiny, I've got to say. I mean, like the handbrake thing, just forget that, I don't use it. The only other one I mentioned is the stop, start. I have to remember to switch that off as soon as I get in. And the trouble is it resets every time you take the key out, so you have to remember to not allow it to stop, start. You should never put that on this engine, I don't think. But anyway, it's typical of the era, 2015, 2016. But the other thing is the steering on this car, compared to that Boxster I showed you, which was a 2009 model, I think. It's a little bit lighter, the steering, at this electro steering they went to in 2013. I don't quite like it as much as the earlier steering. One tip I've been given by a couple of other owners is that they've changed the steering wheel. Well, there's two things you can do. You can actually reprogram. I've not done this. I don't do any changes to the car at all. It's not modified. But you can reprogram the steering, apparently, in the settings if you've got the Porsche control module plugged in at service. And you can actually weight it up a little bit more. So I might actually get that done in the future. Or you can actually change the steering wheel to the GT4 wheel. Now, my wheel, you may have noticed, it's quite large. It's the standard wheel. It's got the paddles behind it for the PDK. But the GT4 wheel is just a fraction, just a bit less diameter. And people say it gives a bit more feel. It just makes it feel a bit better. Not quite turning as much. It just seems to suit the car better, as on the GT4. Because I think that's all they did to it was change the wheel. So I might do that, something else. But they are £1,400 or something. But don't let me scare you off with all this, because I don't think you need to be a millionaire or particularly rich to afford one of these. Getting hold of it is obviously, that's a bit of a challenge, of course. But if like me, I had, some life savings that weren't achieving much in terms of interest, and I thought I could have a lot of fun with this thing, and if I choose wisely, do not choose the false grail, yeah? Do not choose the Lotus. When I talk about Lotus, I shouldn't say that because Lotus, they've just had terrible redundancies. Anyway, I'll talk about that another day. But the Lotus Emira, I was going to joke and say, had the Emira been around when I bought this, that would have been a tough choice because the Emira is a good-looking car as well. The only car I think looks as nice as this, a car of the same sort of size. Anyway, so Yeah, basically, you don't have to be a millionaire. It's just about budgeting and deciding how long you want to keep the car. Now, I've had it for 8 years plus, and it'll be 8.5 years by the time it's 10. And I've never had a car that long. It's twice as long as any other car I've ever had, which tells you how much I like it. You know, I've got no desire to change it at all. Maybe an odd tweak here and there, like the steering wheel I mentioned, or the steering, but nothing else. It's perfect. It's just such a nice thing to own. Everybody compliments me when they see it. It's not a silly colour. It's a sensible, sober colour. Great thing to own. Thing of beauty. Like I said, a 21st century E-Type Jag. Anyway, I've gone on far too long again. I might watch this in playback and think I need to split it into two. I don't know, but that's where we are. So that's the Porsche 981, and I'm going to say cheerio for now. Put all my service data records away, and this is important, of course, that you keep all this stuff, because I've sold cars like this before, and any genuine buyer will want to see all that information and understand that you've had it serviced and you've maintained it properly. It was interesting when I sold my S2000, because somebody came here and they saw the way, just like this is, everything was the same apart from the car, and they said, "My God, you really pamper it, don't you? You've gone beyond, you've gone beyond the required standard of looking after a car." And they knew that they could trust me. They could see that I'd just loved it to death, and that's quite important. And that helps you. The best example, sorry, shut the camera there. The best example I can give you of, is it worth it? You spend a lot of time on it. Well, you're right. When we had the smart Brabus Coupe, I went to the Volkswagen dealer, local one, and I said, "How much will you give me in the trade-in for a brand new Golf GTI Club Sport?" And they looked at it, and it was mint, this car. I'd had the only fault it had was a big chip in the bonnet with a dent, and I'd had it repaired and resprayed. Beautiful, it looked brand new. It was gorgeous, deep gloss black with these wonderful Brabus wheels, silver alloys, and it was flawless. And I took it in, and he said, "I'll give you 3,250 quid." And I said, "Hang on a minute, the book, Glasses Guide." I said, "Glasses Guide says 4,400. You give me £1,000 below, poor, average to poor trade value." No, well, it's very complicated, and it's not a car that's got a lot of, not a car that's got it's a bit niche, it's not well followed, and it's limited customers, and blah 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 blah. And he said, "So you want the Golf GTI then?" I said, no, I want the Golf GTI less, £6,000. "Oh, there's no chance of that." He said, "I'm sorry, sir, you've been completely unrealistic." So what happened? I sold it privately for £6,500. And what did I say the book value was? 4.5. But I'd maintained this. It was immaculate. The buyer came, he saw it under the lights, and he said, he came with his father, and he said, it looks brand new. I've got to have it, and he knew it was a bit overpriced. But he'd seen others, and nothing came close. And this is desirability, If you can make something desirable and keep it, this is the way it is for me. I'm keeping it desirable, keeping it so I'll always be able to find a buyer for this if I get into any difficult straits in the future. And I recommend it to you as a way of looking after your car, if you can. Not everybody can do it, nobody's got a garage and stuff, I know. But there we go. So it's a very well pampered machine. I'm going to finish off with the car now, as I did last time. The next thing is we need to go out in it, and we need to have a proper look at what it can do. You need to hear it fire up. It's got the most wonderful engine note. It's just got the fantastic handling, beautiful sort of dynamics on the road. The way it handles is absolutely fantastic. And it's a very beautiful thing. As I said, it reminds me of the E-Type Jag. It's like a 21st century E-Type Jag. Anyway, said enough for today. There we go. Back to how we started. Thanks very much for joining me. Sorry it was a bit of a long one. Hope you found it interesting though. It's quite eye-opening, eye-popping, some of you might say. But the fact is, if you have a budget and you can have a car like this, that if you're buying a car, make sure you buy from somebody like me, not the same as me, but someone who's really loved the car and really looked after it, and someone who's a proper enthusiast, not just some rich boy racer. They're the ones you must avoid at all costs because they don't care about anything. They drive everything into the ground, treat it like it's an F1 car and hammer it. What you want is somebody, perhaps not so young, who has got something like this and has really cherished it. And those are the people you want to almost like they're passing it on to a new custodian who will be the same. Hopefully you'll do the same. So that's the secret. And if you budget it and you check out all the costs in advance, make sure it's been maintained perfectly, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. So that's me. So talking about the 981 again. Next time, less talk, more drivey. Yeah, you're going to enjoy that. So stay tuned because I think you'll find it very entertaining. It's like watching Top Gear or Harry's Garage. Absolutely fantastic. Anyway, thanks for joining me. Stay well, stay safe. Don't forget to look at some of the other material that we've got on Peter Goes Rogue. And I'll see you again with the keys. Here they are. Look, got the keys here. The magic keys in my hand. So we'll go out and take it for a spin and you can see on board for yourself what it's like. Till then, thanks very much. Take care of yourselves. Thanks a lot. And bye for now.